Hi, I'm Shira Carpel.
And I'm Shayna Gaunt, and we're board-certified behavior analysts. At How to ABA, we provide practical resources, community, and support to ABA professionals. In each episode of our podcast, we will be having real conversations with real people, sharing real stories about ABA.
We'll share relevant strategies and actionable tips that will make us all better ABA practitioners. It's the ABA content you need that you're not going to learn in a textbook. On today's podcast, we are talking about something that we all do as part of our jobs, but probably didn't get the kind of training that we needed. We are talking about staff training. Now, this could be training supervisees, it could be training paraprofessionals, RBTs, therapists, teachers, anyone that you're giving some behavioral training to.
Number one would be know your audience. So who are you presenting to? Are you presenting to RBTs? Are you presenting to BCBAs? Are you giving some training to teachers, etc.? Know who you're talking to so that you can target your talk to those specific people.
Yeah. And I think with that, have realistic expectations. So if you're training, for example, teachers who have no background in data collection or ABA principles, and all of a sudden you're explaining to them how to complete, partial interval recording data sheets, you're going to lose them. So if you are training a certain audience, understand where they're coming from and train them on something that's doable, something that they can actually take away from the training. So if they've never heard of data collection, you might start with something that they can do and understand so that they can feel successful. And then they could get further training on taking it to the next level.
That's right. So if you're training somebody who's brand new to the field of ABA, or like Shira said, a teacher who doesn't know a ton about ABA, keep it simple, make things easy and make things attainable for them. So your goals at the beginning of the workshop should be easy and attainable and have take homes by the end of it.
Yeah. And the other thing is don't assume anything. Don't assume that they understand the expectations or that they know where you're coming from with certain definitions or explanations. I did a training with my staff in the summer before a lot of them started their role. And I kind of thought okay, great. They all really know what they're doing. We did a training. I explained to them the expectations. Now, a couple of weeks into their role, some of them are coming to me I have no idea what my expectations are. I didn't really know that this was part of it. And so I have to now revisit the training, and we're doing a whole nother training because it had to be clear. And I kind of assumed from that first training that they understood and they knew the expectations, but they never experienced the role. They never done it. So now that they actually did it, we're revisiting that training and explaining it more clearly.
And that brings me to my next point, and that's about breakout groups and making it really interactive. So, you can do as much training as you want, and your PowerPoint slides look great, and, everything that you're doing looks perfect on paper. But, you're going to a session and you're going to, even if it's just an hour, nobody wants to be talked at for an hour. Really try and break things down and have interactive sessions and group work, et cetera, if it's possible.
Yeah. And the other thing I really like to incorporate is some BST. So when we did a training recently on, running small groups, so I could talk about it forever and talking to people and explaining it. And we had handouts, but what was important to us was to include a video. So we took a video of someone actually running a small group, and that video says so much more than I can explain on a worksheet. So that was kind of our model. And then you can have them role play that and practice that. And it doesn't even have to be in a real situation. It could be in your little practice scenario. Show them the model, the video model, how you want it done, and then have them, break up into groups and practice and role play and get your feedback. They do this a lot with, if you've ever been trained for CPR or first aid or things like that. Part of the training incorporates that BST, where it's not enough for you to just listen to the speaker talk about, how to do CPR and how to apply, bandages and wounds. They have to see you do it. So we can take that same approach when we're training our staff on any one of our behavioral principles.
I'm laughing at the last CPR training that we had. We were out in a field because we had to physically distance because of COVID. And we were out in a field and it rained half the day, but here we are kissing mannequins basically in the middle of nowhere. It was hilarious. But yeah, you're right. Take a page out of that and, get your staff to quote unquote play around with bandages, right? If you're running a program or you're showing them how to do social skills, get them to actually, engage with the materials you're using. I've done staff training on play, and we've actually gotten out a whole bunch of games, and we've actually just played. And, we walk around and provide feedback in terms of how to play, et cetera. And trying to keep that feedback fairly positive and focusing on the positive things they're doing and really just shape the behavior.
Something else that I like to do when I'm giving a training, especially when it's people who are a little bit newer to the principles of ABA and the stuff that I'm talking about, is have there be a handout or a visual or something concrete, because a lot of people are visual learners. Sometimes it may take them time to process, but this gives them something that they can walk away with and review. And I very often find these handouts like hung up in different areas of the building, and they use it as a visual reference. And I think that that's great because, if I, as a presenter, can summarize what I'm explaining in one page or in 10 points, I think I've done a service, because then I've really gotten to the main takeaways that I want the staff to take from that. And then it also gives them something to remind them of what we talked about.
Think about all the acronyms there are in ABA. Even ABA is an acronym. It drives me bananas. But if you're new to this field, or even if you're not new, but you've got a presenter who's throwing out all these terms in acronyms and using acronyms to explain things, we may think that's really simple and really easy to understand. But for people who are newer to this field, it gets very difficult very fast. So that's when those handouts and those visuals really help.
Yeah. And something else you can do if you want to really show progress in your staff, there are some staff I've worked with for many years. And the first time I would do a training, it was like all new to them. And they were, still walking away a little bit confused. Over time, I joke that some of the staff could be giving the training because I tend to say the same things over and over again because those are the important things. But something that you can also do is do something like a pre-test and a post-test, where if you're doing a training that you really need the staff to be able to grasp the concept and you want to be able to show progress or really be really clear about the expectations, you can do a pre-test and do a quick little quiz. It can even be like a fun Kahoot on the principles that you're going to be covering. And then at the end of the training, or even like a week later to see if they remember it, do a quick little post test and see how many people absorb the content from the training. How effective was the training? It's good to know as a presenter, did we get our message across, and how can we do better? That's really good feedback for us.
You bet. And Sherry, you mentioned that, some of these people who've been training with you for 10 years should be giving the presentation. Oftentimes during group, those people who are the leaders in your organization, have them wander around and give other people feedback. There's only one of you to go around. And if you're giving a training to 5 people, that's okay. But if you're giving a training to 50 people, you can't target all those people all at the same time. So get some of your senior members to go around and help you with that feedback.
Mm-hmm. And I also like to use examples, use things that are relevant to you as the presenter, because it keeps it interesting, and also keeps it interesting to use examples that are relevant to your audience. So if you're speaking to parents, use examples that would be relevant to parents. Speaking as a parent, I could speak from my own experience. If you're speaking to teachers, use examples that would be relevant to them. But introduce those, stories or anecdotes and keep it exciting.
Sometimes if I'm doing an in-person training, I'll actually bring some, little Halloween candy. And, the first few times we're asking for oral responding or people to give their input, the audience is really silent. So, what I'll do is as soon as somebody asks a question, I start throwing out Halloween candy. And all of a sudden you've got all these people participating. I'm like, hey, that's reinforcement.
Power of reinforcement. It's magic.
Or bribery. Is it bribery, Shara?
We also used to, when we would do trainings, often take little YouTube clips and show. It wasn't even like an ABA clip, but like showing a clip from YouTube and talking about like what ABA principle can we find in that clip, doing something like that, which is interactive. And it also makes it like more meaningful, because ABA doesn't just exist in the world of ABA, right? It exists everywhere. So that's something interesting that you could do in your trainings.
Absolutely. And then, Shira mentioned it before, but with visuals, having a take home. So having not only some visuals that they can take and post in the office, but also some type of manual, that they, whether it's the PowerPoint slides. I have so many PowerPoint slides from so many conferences that I still have, and they're in a file folder somewhere. And I'll probably never look at them again. But just the art of having those and knowing I can go back to them, in my mind, it seems, I feel like it's my safety net to be able to go back to those. But also I'm a learner who needs to be able to write things down to really internalize them. So, when I'm at conferences or even when I'm listening to a webinar, I'm often taking notes. So just having that handout for people to be able to take notes is incredible, regardless of whether they go back to their notes in, the first place or not. That's okay. It's just that act of sometimes, pen to paper for us old school people really seems to drive home the point.
And I'll only go to conferences with Shayna because she takes the notes, and that means that I don't have to. Even when I try, they're just not that good. So yeah, find a friend. Now that brings us to talking about what we came out with recently, which is our staff training series. Now, over the years, we've done lots of presentations and lots of trainings on different topics. And we thought that it would be a great idea to offer it as a resource to other professionals, because developing these trainings takes so much time, and we don't have all that time. And there's really no need to reinvent the wheel. Like, we have so much of this content that we thought we could offer it to our audience. And so what we did is we put together the slides from our trainings that we've done, and they're in very simple, basic slides, not even with our logo on them, so that you could take them and edit them and put your own, twists and images and logo on them and use them for your company. So they're completely editable, and they're on different topics, things like reinforcement, behavior management, what is ABA, things that take you from, basics of introduction principles all the way through to, teaching language and more sophisticated topics.
These slides are really meant as here, we've done this before. Why reinvent the wheel? We really believe strongly that, you guys shouldn't have to be not wasting your time, but, it's so much time and so time consuming. You've got better things to spend your time on. So we really believe strongly in being able to give you things that we've already done. These slides are black and white. They're PowerPoint, so that, like Shira said, you can just slap your logo on the slide master, and there you go. You've got a presentation. You look like a rock star.
Mm-hmm. And they do come with pre-tests and post-tests, so you can use those on your audience before and after the presentation. They come with workbooks, editable workbooks, so you could give those out to your staff so that they could take notes if they, learn that way. They also come with the answers to those quizzes and to the workbooks, and some notes for the presenter, and anything else that really falls into that topic that we're covering. So we broke it down into, we now have 10 topics on the website, and you can purchase those each individually if you just want that topic. And you can also purchase the entire bundle of the 10 for a discounted price. So we've already had lots of people go and purchase them. And we know the feedback has been that it's so helpful just to have this template and something to work off of, so that at least you're not starting from scratch. And it really gives you everything you need to provide the staff training on that topic.
And that's one of the biggest things is, if I'm asked to present on something, lots of times I'll call up a presentation from something I've already done. But sometimes I have to create it from scratch, and I pull up my PowerPoint. And if you're anything like me, I'll pull up my PowerPoint to my Google Slides, and I'll sit there and I'll stare at it. And then I get distracted, and then I return a text. And then I, look at my email, and then I go back to my PowerPoint slide, and I get distracted again because I'm procrastinating. I don't want to do it. It takes forever to develop something. Whereas if I had a template, at least I'm not developing from a blank slate, and it actually helps me and focuses me.
Yeah. So we'll put it in the show notes also, where you can go and check out the products that we do have, and we're going to be adding to it. So right now, like I said, we have 10, and we're going to keep coming out with more on the series. And if there's anything that you want specifically a staff training on, go let us know. And you could check out our store at howtoaba.com/shop. And we know that you're really going to benefit from all the time it's going to save you, and from all the effective staff that we're going to have trained.
Thanks for joining today's conversation. Wherever you get your podcast, please go and subscribe, rate, and review so others can find out about us too.
For more from How to ABA, including free resources and ABA materials, visit our blog at howtoaba.com. And make sure that you're following us on social media for more practical tips and updates.